Hello and welcome to the Built in the Bronx podcast. Today I'm really excited to introduce you all to somebody that I know you will enjoy listening to. David G. is a Lehman College graduate, degree holder in computer science and business administration. He works as a software engineer at American Express. He's a graduate of the prestigious Bronx Science, and he was built right here in the Bronx. He also interned at Chase and has run his own business. My name is Maximilian Hill, and if this is the first time you're watching this video, I'm the host of the Built in the Bronx podcast. And on the Built in the Bronx podcast, we connect Lehman alumni with current students to help them grow their networks. So any Lehman students that are listening are encouraged to reach out to David. David, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yep. Thank you so much, Max. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So tell me a little bit about your experience at American Express. Very prestigious company.
I've been at American Express for the past 2 years. I started working there immediately after graduating from Lehman. So technically it is my first full-time job. I've had a great experience. I would say it's not as it's not as techy as like some of the big tech, but I think it's a great different experience, and you get to learn a lot of different things.
Yeah, one Lehman graduate that I spoke with recently said, if you have tech skills, but you find yourself at a company with not a lot of tech-skilled people, you could become very secure because you'll always be in demand. Whereas if you're at a company with a bunch of genius programmers, it's always it's going to be very competitive, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a much harder existence, I think, especially in some of these companies. But you also interned at J.P. Morgan Chase, right?
Yeah, I'm just going through the banks, I guess.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like compared to like startups, the culture of there's like not as much of a tech culture in banks, but I think it's even like over the past like 2-3 years, I've noticed like a pretty big change like in the office and the environment and like the people that like almost all companies are kind of like headed towards that tech direction, if that makes sense.
Well, I think you see they call it fintech now, which I think is all of these financial institutions. They're waving the white flag, saying we can't compete with tech, so we're just going to merge, right?
Yeah.
And that you see all these fintechs now popping up. But I think, especially here in New York, you're going to have a lot of financial institutions.
Right.
So our audience here is mostly Lehman students, right? So I want you to put yourself back in the shoes when you were a student here. And like when you were looking for internships, right? And the whole internship is rife with struggle and rejection. What strategies did you use to, search for and apply? And ultimately, how did you land your internship at Chase?
Right. At least for me, when I got my internship for Chase, I got it through a hackathon that was here at Lehman. So I think it was hosted by J.P. Morgan, Code for Good. So from there, like I got to meet some of the people who did have contacts with like recruiters, and they were able to help me basically get an interview and move on from there. But outside of that, I applied to like 200-300 companies over the course of like 2-3 months, and I think and I'm pretty sure I didn't get anything else. So I guess that just goes to show like how much of rejection you would get, like and how much you need to apply in order to even get one, right? But it's like from all the work of getting that one, then like the rest is a little like smoother sailing, right? Because when I was looking for like full time, it was a much easier experience than when I was trying to find my internship.
Yeah. So I've been here I started at Lehman in January, and I got to attend the one hackathon that we had. The previous guest I actually met at a hackathon, and he was in the group that won. And I thought we had a really good turnout. And then Professor Brian Murphy showed me a hackathon from before COVID, and it was like 3 times the turnout, before COVID. So he said, this is what we have to try to get back to. But any Lehman computer science students should look out for the hackathons because we get a lot of really good companies to come sponsor it. And I think the hackathon that I was at was sponsored by Postman, and they do APIs.
Yeah.
And any opportunity that we get to, or that the students get to get in front of someone who has hiring power, they should take advantage of, definitely, because we're going to have, I think we have Accenture coming on campus and the data school later in October. So we're going to, promote those events to all the students, and you guys will get opportunity to meet some of these people. So
right, I think the best way to find like internships and jobs is through these like school hosted events, and where like you have more of a connection than just sending your resume into like a blank page. Like I feel like that's where you're gonna get the most conversion rates is through I think you guys talked about a program like CIE, right? And
yeah.
I think those are great outlets that I feel like there wasn't that much of like even like a few years ago,
Yeah, that's the CUNY, the CIE. That's the CUNY Inclusive Economy Initiative,
right?
And that's through the New York City mayor's office, and then I think we serve I guess all of like the CUNY schools, and it's been a great experience. I've got a great partner, Swathi, and I've met a lot of incredible students, and really you see what the students went through during COVID, right? Having to deal with the shift to remote learning and all of the uncertainty that brought, and then they've pushed on. So, but yeah, definitely try to stay away from the online job boards, because these days I think they call it the ATS, which is the automated tracking system, and they're using it to screen out candidates who don't have certain keywords on their resumes. Right. And if you don't have the exact keywords on the resume, you're out. Our next guest were Janissa. She's really good at resumes. She's worked a lot with Swathi on like resumes, so she could talk a little bit about resumes. But I definitely think the best strategy is to kind of go through your network, build relationships, and when you have relationships with people at some of these companies, you're going to see some of the opportunities before they get released to the public. Because now with remote work, you're competing against a much bigger pool, because it could be somebody in India who's willing to do your job for a fraction of the price, right?
Right.
So, remote work is like a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. I wouldn't, as a student, you would do whatever you can, right? Like, I completely agree, applying to, job boards is the worst way to get a job. But, when you're just starting out, you kind of have no choice. You got to do whatever you can, But like you said, you should start building your network whenever possible. And then after you get your first internship job and whatever, it's unlikely that you'll be, applying to those job boards a lot after that.
Yeah. I think also meetup.com is a great way to meet interesting people, especially here in New York City, because you could just go on meetup.com. There's a lot of tech events. Right? I met people that work at Google. I met people that work at Goldman, some really interesting startups, just through meetup groups that I organized. And, with sites like that and with LinkedIn, really, really easy to meet people. I think never been easier. Also, one thing I wanted to ask you about, you've got a beautiful website. What is the name of your personal website?
Actually, I don't even remember the URL, but it's on my LinkedIn. But it was like a website, because when you're a student, you don't have many projects, right, to go off of. So one of the things that I when I first started learning to code was I wanted a website that people can go on and I can add the new things that I learned there and some projects that recruiters might be interested in. So yeah, for me it was just, and anyone can do this. Go on YouTube, look up like a personal website tutorial, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you spend a few hours, and whenever you learn like new technology, you could always change it, add it, and it's something that you can always have with you at all times, right? That it's something that I do suggest to anyone in computer science to just have one, right?
Yeah. It's your own little slice of the internet, right? One of countless,
Mm-hmm.
was it? But I do think that if you can submit your personal website that, where you control the narrative,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially if it's interactive, that will definitely make you stand out. For
Right.
sure.
Yeah. It doesn't hurt to just have it on your resume, right? Like on the top of my resume, I always have my website, my GitHub, and like any other ways to contact me. So that way, whatever the recruiter might need, if they're interested in your resume, they can find.
Which platform have you used the most to kind of meet interesting people?
I mean, in tech, I feel like almost, or just like the job world now, I feel like is revolving around like LinkedIn,
Yeah.
right?
That's how I think I reached out to you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, exactly. If it wasn't for LinkedIn, like I would never be here, you know?
Yeah.
But like almost all of my interviews and job opportunities now come from LinkedIn. Like, yeah, without that, I honestly wouldn't even know where to look for a job.
Yeah. It's wild how the world has changed so fast.
Yeah.
So this is the Built in the Bronx podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and you went to the famous Bronx Science, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean it's right across the street basically from here. But I mean it was a good experience. I mean I immigrated here when I was 9 from China, and so even like during high school I couldn't. My English wasn't great back then, right? So I would say Bronx Science is where like my English improved a lot, where the teachers were really focused on my career and what I would need in order to, make a name for myself in college, right? And so I think overall it was just a great, diverse experience. But I wouldn't say it's that much different from any other high school.
Yeah, yeah. Have you met Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I don't think so, but for we had Bill Nye come on as our years when we graduated as a speaker, so he was pretty cool, but he talked a lot about like global warming and that, so it wasn't much of a graduation speech rather than just someone to like help the world, but it was still cool.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, if you come across this video, we would love to have you come on the Built in the Bronx podcast. You're always welcome. Your friend Professor Matt O'Dowd would also love for you to come on. So, yeah. So that's great. So, in addition to your incredible experience, you've also run your own business, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I actually think, well, not everyone loves entrepreneurship, but I think if you do have any interest in it, like college is the time to start one, right? I started. It's a belt company. I sourced a lot of the product with the help of my family and other people, but I sourced the product and sold it on. I built my own website for it and sold it here during college, and it's not something I work on currently, but I think I learned a lot from it, and overall, I think that also stood out on my resume, right? Because I feel like in college, it never hurts to start a business because worst case, it's just a really good project on your resume, right? And that's going to help you whether or not you actually make money from it. Right?
Yeah. I think if you go through the entrepreneurship process, even if it doesn't work out, which I think if you look at the statistics, most of them don't,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the experience of being an owner
Mm-hmm.
and thinking like an owner. Because a lot of these big companies, you're not going to start out as an owner.
Right.
And so you can't really experience what it's like to be the owner of a budget until you actually are. But
Yeah.
it could take you 10 to 15 years to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think dabbling in entrepreneurship, is always a good route. You know, I mean, even if it's small, just get a website. Can you get a client for some kind of service in the local community? You know? So
And especially in tech, like it's so much easier for you to just have the resources to make a website or, be able to understand things like advertisement marketing a lot easier than other fields. And, being in tech, like most of my friends have started or currently own their own business, and even the ones that, or most of them that failed, I've never heard anyone complain or like regret about starting a business. Only good things that they learn from it.
tell me about some of your friends' businesses. I'm interested. Always interested. I'm sure the audience would like to hear.
Yeah. So I would say the most successful one currently. I grew up with him. He was the first person I met first friend I made when I came to America. But he was my roommate last year, and then he joined this program, which I also, if anyone has good entrepreneurship idea, I strongly suggest them to apply. It's called YC, Y Combinator.
Y Combinator.
Yeah. But he did that last winter, so almost a year ago. And he got in with two of his other friends, and right now they got a lot of funding, and they're currently building out. It's I believe it's like a managing system, ticketing system for companies to basically built for. It's called Thread, but basically built for enterprises, and that's what they've been working on. My sister is also interning at his company right now, so that's pretty cool.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, but it goes back.
What's
around
the name of the company?
Thread.
Thread.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it goes back like you said. It's just networking is everything, right? Yeah. Sometimes just by having a lot of friends in the field, you can much easier find opportunities and jobs, right?
Definitely. So one of the purposes of this podcast is to connect our current students with alumni like you. So for any Lehman students that are listening, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you? If they have any questions about software engineering, if they have questions about Amex, anything.
Yeah, I mean, anyone's feel free to reach me on my LinkedIn. Right?
Okay.
You could also link it. I don't know if you have a way to do that, but feel free to reach me. My name is David G.E. And I should pop up pretty easily. I don't think there's that many David G's that went to Lehman. But even if it's not software related, feel free to reach out at any point. I'm always open to give a referral to American Express or talk about what they would need to work on in order to be fully prepared for the job process, right?
Wonderful. I think some of our students are going to take you up on that.
Yeah, no, feel free. I'm always open to help people.
All right, David. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Wonderful meeting
Appreciate
you.
it.
Looking forward to coming back again.
We'll have you back on as a future guest. All right? Then you become a friend of the podcast.
Hopefully.
All right, David. Thanks a lot.